morning. This is Anna. I'm a registered dietitian, board certified specialist in pediatric nutrition, and also the author of the book Eat to Focus, which some of you already have read or you're following me um, on my blog or Facebook group. But anyway, so this is a live Q&A that I started a few weeks ago to help you answer some of your questions, because I know many of you are on Facebook page and people are answering questions, but I feel like this is a more intimate way for me to help you. If you have any question, you can post it here, or I can do a one-on-one chat with you so I can better help you with understanding natural alternative for ADHD. So today I want to talk about caffeine. I don't know. I wake up this morning feeling totally refreshed and happy. And you know why? Because I think I slept 8 or 9 hours today. So that was great. So I'm probably like many of you. So we're talking about the adults here right now. So most people go through the week and sleeping only, like some of my patients sleep like only 3 or 4 hours at night. But even like me, because I have a full-time job and I'm also doing running this business on the side, I don't sleep enough. Like during the week, I might have only 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So my mood just go down the hill as the weeks go by, and then it comes back up on the weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, where I get to sleep a lot. Like today I wake up like, oh my god, the world is suddenly such a great place. So I notice that all the time, every time that I sleep enough, I just wake up so much happier, and I don't have that anxiousness when I wake up like um, 5 o'clock in the morning when I have to go to work. So that's why I want to talk about caffeine, because, well, actually, caffeine and sleep both together, because most of us self medicate ourselves with caffeine every day. Like I'm guilty of that too, because usually during the week I do have a caffeine, but probably not as much as most other people, because they basically infuse themselves with caffeine. I have a boss that I used to work with many years ago. So his choice of caffeine is Mountain Dew. Like literally, every time you walk by his office, you'll see a bottle. Not this. Well, he have some small bottles too. I think those are 20 ounce, but occasionally you'll see a 2 liter bottle of Mountain Dew next to him, and and the whole day he's just chucking that thing down all day, and and then and also there's this doctor I used to work with in a clinic. He doesn't work there anymore, but I used to be um, I used to be or my office used to be in one of the exam room in the clinic, which has a sink, right? So his office doesn't have a sink, so he'll come into my office and kind of borrow the sink in there. And he's like, and he's filling up one of the Keurig container. He's like, oh, this is for my Keurig. I drink like 10 cups of coffee a day. I have the Keurig right next to me on my desk. So many people already self-medicating, but the thing is, again, we're just medicating and try to correct the symptoms, right? That's something that I talk a lot in my book about, is that the way currently how we're treating ADHD is symptom focused. Okay, you can't sleep, take a sleeping pill. You can't focus, take this pill. But no one ever wonder, like, why is your kids not focusing? Why is your kids causing trouble? Why is your kid trying to get attention? Because the thing is, when we look at our kids in school, or when your school call, you automatically think that your child is like a troublemaker, try and do this or do that. But what's the intention, right? And kids, they don't do bad things. They just try to do things because they bring things that is a good thing to do at that moment. And maybe they're trying to get attention. But anyway, let's go back to the caffeine. Okay, so most of us are self-medicating ourselves with caffeine and thinking that, oh yeah, I need the caffeine to stay awake and then keep me focused at work so I can finish my project. But no one ever asks, why are you so tired all the time? Why you can't focus at work? And it all goes back to your sleep, right? So um, before I talk about that, I want to go a little bit more into caffeine. Why are we going for caffeine? So caffeine is actually a natural stimulant, very similar to ADHD medication. They don't work in the same mechanism, like boosting the dopamine and all that, but it works in a different way where the caffeine wake up part of the brain that's supposed to keep you more alert and awake. So it's not it doesn't have the same mechanism as like ADHD medication, like the Concerta or methylphenidate, Adderall, or any of those. But caffeine still does its magic along with other natural stimulants. Like some of the things that you might have seen will be the ash ashwagandha. I probably pronounced it wrong, but it's okay. You know what I'm talking about. And something like what's the other one? Ginseng, oh, rhodiola. So there's a bunch of like natural stimulant out there that have similar effect, but very different mechanism than the ADHD medication. So it could be something that you could consider. So if you're taking an ADHD medication, which we know is super strong and affects the dopamine, some of these stuff can be used alongside with the medication to kind of help reduce the need of the medication because it works in a different way, right? So it's like you have this say you have this troublemaker and ADHD medication attack it from here, and then these other supplements can attack it from other corners. So you kind of have like a different mechanism all working together, kind of like a team. So yeah, that might help reduce the medication and reduce the side effects. So with caffeine, so how did that come along? I don't really know. I think people naturally knows that because caffeine or coffee is like one of the most commonly consumed drugs. Yeah, technically it is a drug because we do use caffeine in a lot of in the hospital all the time for little babies who are just born to help their lungs start breathing better and we use caffeine for something else. I can't remember right now. But anyway, that's kind of how I started this whole thing is because of caffeine. So when I started, so I'm a pediatric dietitian, so I see a lot of kids, and I also see a lot of ADHD kids, not for the purpose I'm doing here, but I see them because of failure to thrive. A lot of the kids who are on ADHD medication do become anorexic. Like they don't want to eat, and then they start either not growing or start losing weight. So I see a lot of those kids for that. Occasionally, I might have a referral that says, "Oh, kids just get diagnosed with ADHD. Parents want to try something more natural, so I'm giving the patient to you. You go figure it out because I don't know." So those are a type of ADHD patient that I started seeing. And then after a while, I start noticing there's this psychiatrist was sending me patients who were on ADHD or who were just diagnosed with ADHD, but instead of ADHD medication, he put them on caffeine. So it's not actually a caffeine pill, but they he told the parents, "Oh, just give your child like 1 or 2 ounces of caffeine a day." And then he also prescribed this medication. That was about over 10 years ago. And there's just starting with like more research coming out showing that how fish oil is good. That was when fish oil is like the new thing. Like, oh my God, you need to take fish oil because it helps with your heart, helps lower triglyceride, and blah, blah, blah. So that was when the drug company tried put their hands in that pot of money too, right? So because fish oil is a natural substance, you can really put a patent on it and monopolize the sales for the next 10 years. So what the drug company did is they take fish oil tweak a couple of molecules in it and turn it into this super potent fish oil, and they call it Lofasa, and that's the drug. I think that's the only fish oil prescribed fish oil on the market. But what it is basically a super extra strength fish oil. And actually, you can buy it in Amazon or Vitamin Shop or Whole Foods or any of those places now. Because here, let me let Ashley in. Hi, Ashley. I'm just talking about fish oil, so we can talk about your question later. But anyway, so this is the fish oil that they tweak a few molecules and make it super potent, like medication. So so that I noticed this. So I know that fish oil medication is for cholesterol and for heart disease, right? So I was like, why is this psychiatrist like giving all these kids like this super potent fish oil, right? And like as a dietitian trained back then with the conventional way, like they always say like I was like brainwashed to just like say no to all supplements. Like, oh my God, you shouldn't be like taking all these supplements because especially if you take fish oil, it'll thin your blood and then you'll bleed and you're gonna have all these bleeding problem. So that's how I was taught back then. That was before I start specialized in all these other rare genetic disease that I just just become better. I'm more enlightened at that time. But anyway, so then I was like, okay, let me just do some research because that's usually how I learn and do things is I do my own research and figure out what's the body needs and why those things help. So I start doing my research and I was like, oh my God. So caffeine is a natural stimulant. So it's very similar to the ADHD medication, and then fish oil, that was like I said, over 10 years ago, the research was just starting to come out. So there's some research on fish oil, omega-3 fatty acid, and brain health, but there's not as much research as they have nowadays. So I was like, oh my God, this psychiatrist is like genius. He's like looking into all these alternatives and is helping the kids with ADHD without medication, or at least trying all this supplement first. So I was like, oh my God, that's great. So that's kind of how I started. And then later on, when I started noticing my daughter who have like some ADHD symptoms, I was like, nope, nope, we're not going to a doctor because I know right away if I take her to a doctor and tell them what she have, they're gonna start her on medications. I was like, at that time she was hardly eating anything. If she goes on that medication, it's like she's not gonna eat at all. So I was like, nope, that's not gonna happen. So I just start doing my research and all those things. And that's how I started the blog. I was like, you know what? I'm spending so much time reading all these articles, reading everything. I might as well put it on a blog and share with other people who are trying to do the same too. So save them some time. So that's kind of my story of how I get started or with the caffeine thing. But anyway, so right now we have Ashley and Waha. So if you guys have any question, you can post it on in the chat box and I can answer it. Or if you want to unmute yourself and have a conversation with me, I'm cool with that as well. But I'm just, or you can raise your hand, let me know what you want to do. Because I'm just talking about caffeine and sleep because yeah, it's just a fun topic. Because I noticed that when I sleep enough, I'm just so much happier and more alive and also think better. I don't have that anxiety or anxious feeling when I wake up like 5 o'clock in the morning. I actually like wake up like 30 minutes before this live call. So I made it. I thought I'm gonna miss this. So but anyway, do you guys have any question? If not, I'll keep going and talk about sleep. So So I talk about how caffeine was can be used as a stimulant alongside with ADHD medication or a substitute for very mild cases, or in some cases, like in some adults, they're chucking down caffeine all day long, like a slow infusion, and it works for them that way, then that's fine. Anyway, so let's talk about sleep. The reason why want to talk about sleep is I think we kind of forgotten how important sleep is because like I said, when I sleep enough, I think I slept like 8 or 9 hours last night. It was great. I wake up, the sky was like pretty looking. It's like when you wake up with like after 8 or 9 hours of sleep, you feel like a different person or you live in a different world because the world suddenly seems so much better and happier. So I want everyone to have that same feeling. So I want to talk about sleep. And I know people with ADHD oftentimes have hard time with going to sleep on time because there's something called, okay, I probably is gonna get this wrong because I haven't used that term for so long, but I talk about it in my book. It's a delayed sleep something something syndrome. Basically, what it is every one of us is born with something. What's that thing called? The circadian rhythm. So in our body, we're like a bag full of hormones here. Okay, and yeah, so we have all these hormones going on in our body. So some hormone comes in the morning, some hormone comes in at night. So the circadian rhythm is based on all these different hormones. So what it does is in the morning when we wake up, there's when our eyes or our skin is exposed to sunlight, that triggers the body to release cortisol to wake us up. And then at night, as the sun goes down and the light disappear, our body is supposed to make the calming hormones like serotonin and melatonin, and those are ones that make us fall asleep at night. The problem is with nowadays, since what's his name invented, Thomas Edison invented electricity and light bulb, that changed the whole world. Because many gazillion years ago, we just fall asleep when the sun goes down. You might have a candle lit up to stay up a little bit, but the other night I have no electricity, and it's almost impossible to read with candlelight because I try to read something because I was bored, but I can't. But anyway, so yeah, even with candlelight, it's hard to read, but electricity makes that possible to read at night when there's no sun. So yeah, basically, our body could be just messed up with all that exposure to light and electronics, especially like a lot of us is always on our phone, like on the tablets reading things. So all that blue light can affect our circadian rhythm. So you can actually get like glasses like this. I start using glasses like these that have blue ray blocking. So just to see if it helps. So yeah, so the blue light can affect your sleep or circadian rhythm. So what people nowadays is because we can stay up so late, and we're in a world where it's 24/7. It's not like, oh yeah, the sun goes down, you go sleep. Like I'm working with people from around the world. Like sometimes it's like morning time here. Like my assistant, they're in Philippines. They're like supposed to be sleeping 5 a.m. in the morning for them, but they're like talking to me on the phone the last half an hour. So the world is not like limited to just like, oh, at certain time, but it can be 24/7. So a lot of us just don't get that time to sleep um, normally. So that's why like I want to talk about, even though my book Eat to focus on eating, but the way that I talk about treating this ADHD naturally, I don't focus on just the food, because even though that's kind of my specialty, I'm a dietitian, that's like my job to talk about food, right? But to me is not enough. The food only fuel you, provides you with the power to function the brain, but then But then there's still other things that you need to work on, like using supplements to correct any nutritional deficiency. Because supplements, like you can go back to last week when I talked about ADHD supplements. There are different functions of it, but the approach that I talk about in the Eat to Focus is like a multifaceted, I guess, from different angle, attacking the ADHD symptoms from different angle. So with nutrition, to provide nutrients to support the brain like growth and development and catching up growth, and also to fuel it. And then the supplements is mostly to correct any nutritional deficiency is that is going to take forever with the food to correct. And then correcting the gut health, that's also part with using um, both the nutrition and also the supplement. And then the very last step of the ET focus protocol, I focus on brain building, like activities and things that you can do to rebuild the brain cells. It's kind of like I always like to use the analogy of remodeling a home, right? So like if you're going to remodel a home, you're going to have a project manager to show where all the things go, so you can buy all the all the materials like the wood, the drywall, the flooring, and the tiles, the toilet, sink, and stuff. But someone needs to know where those things are. So when you eat all the right food and get all the supplements, that's great. It's going to the brain. But then we know that if your child or you're an adult with ADHD, you haven't been focusing for a long time. Your brain is not gone to like, oh yeah, I got all this food, all these supplements, so I'm gonna function right away, like gonna be super focused right away. You might notice that some of the symptoms get better just because your brain is better fed. But in the long term, you want to have that path, to create that path where, okay, I got this homework assignment or this project assignment, so I know my next step, the next step, the next step, and the next step is. Because right now your brain has been used to like, okay, I got this homework assignment or got this project assignment, but oh, I'm going to do some of this and some of that and some of this before I get to the next step. So you don't have that solid path created yet. But the supplements and the diet and all those is going to correct the fundamental biochemistry of that. But the activities, like things like doing quiet time, doing yoga, doing like skill um, physical activities or sports that require skills, those things are going to help your brain create the new connection. Because eating food doesn't help you create connection. It's the doing and the thinking and the practicing part that'll help you create all those new brain connections. That's why like that's how I focus with my eat to focus protocol, is like have all different steps. And actually I'm thinking of adding a fifth component to that, which is parenting. Because I just learned, because I'm actually training to be a therapist right now, because I noticed that like I have all these good resources telling you what to feed your kids, how to cook, how to feed them, what supplements to take. But I'm finding that a lot of it is like perceptions. Like people often think that, oh yeah, my kid's not gonna eat that, never mind, forget about that. Or, oh, that's impossible, I can't get my kids to do quiet time or do this and do that. So there's a lot of limiting beliefs from parents, and that's why I start training to be a therapist, to help people with the behavioral part and managing their limiting beliefs as a parents, and also giving a parents more confidence. Because that's what I notice is a lot of parents don't have the confidence to discipline their kids. They feel that they have to always go from an outside source as an expert. Hey, what am I supposed to do with this child? But yeah, so that's kind of what it is. But let's answer some question, because we've been in this for a while. Um, so this question is for what Wajiha. I'm so sorry. I probably butchered your name. But so you say you want to help my son focus in school and what kinds of food I can give my child. So so my question is, before I answer that, how old is your son and what kind of issue are you dealing with in school? So you can type it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and we can talk too. So, but anyway, um, so let's answer an easy question first. What kind of food? So the kind of food that I focus on. If you get my book or you follow me on my blog post, there's a whole list of food that is in there. So the food that I advocate mostly will be things like any kind of unprocessed animal protein, like chicken, fish, steak, turkey. What else did I say? Seafood, all those kind of unprocessed meat. Okay, let me turn this off. So any kind of unprocessed meat that you can make at home or you can pick up from a restaurant. So nothing like I will try to avoid as much as possible any kind of chicken nuggets, fish steaks, or things like frozen meals or frozen dinners and things like that. And then also, so unprocessed meat, a lot of vegetables, both starchy and non-starchy ones. So like any vegetables that your kids will eat. Um, Fruit. So with fruit, usually I recommend treating fruit as more of a dessert because people often think that, oh yeah, fruit is good, it's natural, comes from a plant, must be good. So I'll just eat fruit all day long. But the thing is, fruit has a lot of fructose or the sugar in fruit. And one of the thing is kind of like back to the human evolution. Fruit has a lot of fructose. So as humans, when we used to not have a refrigerator in the house and not have Whole Foods or McDonald's around the corner where food is really scarce. Like you probably will find food every few days. So whenever we find food or find something that's sweet, our basic instinct is that okay, gorge on all the sweet stuff that have fructose in it because those are things that is going to keep you alive for as long as possible, or at least keep you alive until you find more food in a few days or a few weeks. So, and one of the other thing that fructose does is that it kind of naturally stimulates the dopamine rewards space in the brain, and also the fructose actually gets stored more easily. It's almost like a fat storing sugar. So it the way that fructose is processed differently from other sugar is processed in the liver and it is stored on the liver as fat. So it's more like a food or a nutrient that is actually really meant to create body fats to create a source of um, a storage for the body to prevent famine and dying of starvation. Okay, so here we got more questions. So what Jihaz, your son is 8 years old. So okay, so that's good. And then Ashley said, my son has been on gluten-free, dairy-free diet for a few months now. Haven't seen an improvement. I was wondering though, can ghee be used if we're avoiding dairy? And does ghee affects ADHD? Additionally, he's allergic to fish. So we use Spartan flaxseed oil for his omega supplement. Is that a good choice? Yeah. So yeah, the barley, the flaxseed oil is good. That's actually what I started using with my daughter first because I don't know how get her swallow that giant fish oil pills or get her to take a spoon of fish oil. So I was using the flaxseed oil. I get the one I think the same brand. It comes in a squeezy bottle. So I just squeeze those on her food because she was so underweight like when she was little. So I just added to all her soups, her noodles. Noodles was her favorite stuff. But that was when I was still experimenting with a lot of stuff and I didn't know that gluten was one of the problem. So the gluten-free and dairy-free diet is always good. That's the diet that I always start most of my patient with. Yeah, so I'm going to answer what Jiha's and Ashley's question probably alongside because one asked about what food to avoid. So I'm going, no, what food to eat, but I'm going to answer also what food to avoid as well. So definitely gluten and dairy, those are always the first two things that I'll recommend to avoid. And then other food that I also recommend suggesting, like if you go on either my website, I might have it on my blog, or in my book, definitely listed out all the food that to avoid. So, in the first step of the Eat to Focus protocol is actually an elimination diet. And the reason why I start with the elimination diet is I noticed that a lot of kids with ADHD do have food allergy. So, like in Ashley, your son is allergic to fish. So, you probably have very obvious symptoms. So, most people look at food allergy, or when they think of food allergy, they think of someone who eat a food and then break out in hives, full body hives or rash immediately, or have like swollen lips, can't breathe, heart rate goes up, and face all swollen. So those are your immediate um, true food allergy that is mediated by the immunoglobulin E, which is the one that is tested in the blood test. But kids and also adults with ADHD who also have a lot of gut symptoms tends to have what I call the hidden food intolerance. So they're not true allergic reaction. That's why like the blood test will not show up any of this. But you know when your kids eat certain food or eat certain things, something happens. Like I just recently start seeing a little boy like they're just so confused and the doctors was lost because they're like something's wrong with my child, he's allergic to something and I don't know what he's allergic to because he'll just break out in like this rash around his mouth. So and there could be a lot of things. You could be sensitive to food, you could be sensitive to food chemicals or spices and things like that. So with this little boy, I think we came to a conclusion that he's sensitive to a lot of food additives because that was the father's side history. The father's side has a lot of sensitivity to food coloring and other additives and cinnamon and stuff like that. So we're still working on him to figure out what else he's allergic to. So going back to this, the elimination diet. So if you look at the elimination diet that I recommend in the book is I eliminate also a lot of the healthy foods too, like nuts, nuts, beans, and so okay, let's just start from the beginning. So the elimination diet that I recommend to be on the first couple of weeks, at least first 2 months, is dairy, um, gluten, nuts, beans, and eggs. I think those are the ones. I might have forgot, but yeah, those five things. And you might be thinking, eggs too? Like my child doesn't have a reaction to eggs. What I notice is a lot of people have very subtle intolerance. And again, like most of us think that food allergy is always physical, something that you see like a rash on the skin, rash on the face, swollen ears, swollen lips, like stop breathing, those physical symptoms. But with a lot of those hidden food intolerances, the symptoms are very subtle, so you don't notice anything like obvious. And also the reaction a lot of times is very delayed. So you might see some of the reaction doesn't show up till like 3 days after you ate that food. So that's why the elimination diet restrict off those seemingly harmless food. I have another patient, she's a teenager now. So yeah, I was like, oh, so she's been on a grain-free diet for a while. And I asked her, because occasionally she'll have things like corn and rice. And I asked her, does still food bother you? She's like, oh no. But then the mom was like sitting next to her. She's like, yeah, right. Like so mom was like, yeah, 3 days later you'll notice that she can't focus. So so some of those symptoms with food tolerance is more behavioral. Sometimes we see our kids act up more often, or They seem more tired, not themselves. They're not focusing. So it's more subtle. That's why I always have the parents keep a food log, write down everything that the kids eat, including the time that your child eat that food, and then any kind of reaction that you notice, like your child seems more clingy, more whiny, or more lack of focus, or sleepy, or just acting silly. That's another thing too. Some kids actually act silly after eating certain foods. Like my daughter was that way. Like if she eats any pepperoni, so we don't have pepperonis anymore. So yeah, so those are things to notice, and that's the reason why that elimination seems to be a little strict. And also so those are the food to avoid. So food to eat, like I mentioned earlier, will be any kind of unprocessed meat, any fruits, vegetables, but again, limiting fruits to treat it more like a dessert, just a small piece of fruit after dinner. So that would be the best. Or if you're going to eat fruit during the day, make sure you always, always, always eat it with a protein, like um, apples with peanut butter, or like a piece of chicken with some grapes or things like that. Never eat fruit or sweet stuff by itself. And and then also what I notice is a lot of kids, the breakfast is like kind of like a dessert buffet. So a lot of the breakfast food that we eat when we don't have time is like a bowl of cereal, which is usually a sweet type of cereal, or like oatmeal, of course, and other sweet things because you put all that sugar and stuff in it, or like a granola bar or cereal bar, all those sweet things. But you need to reverse that and do more protein in the morning. Just think about like when you wake up in the morning, hopefully you get 8 hours sleep. So this whole time you're not awake, you're actually not having any food in. So then your breakfast, that's the reason why they said breakfast is important. It's not important to a point that you have to eat it right after eating. You just eat your breakfast, which is your first meal, whenever you're hungry. But it's important in a point that you're replenishing your body because you haven't been eating for the last 8, 9, 10 hours. So it's important in that sense, not that you need to eat it immediately after waking up. Like a lot of times, I don't even have breakfast till later. But I don't tell people I skip breakfast. I just say I have breakfast at 10 o'clock. Like now it's like 10:44 here in Hawaii. And I'm still working on my cup of tea. So that's what I have. Okay. Um, yeah, so those are stuff to use. And then to answer your question, kind of I answered part of it is so gluten and dairy free is good. It's just a starting point. What I'll suggest for you, Ashley, is that you can maybe start like looking at eliminating oh, the other thing, first look at the processed stuff, right? Is he still eating a lot of processed food? Because there's a lot of healthy food that is still processed, right? Like things that comes out um, from a bag and stuff. Like I actually was trying a bunch of all these plant-based yogurt, and they're like, oh my god, they're just desserts in disguise. So yeah, looking at different things like are is the rest of the food that he's eating now, there's still a lot of added sugar in it. Is there any food additives, food colorings, and things like that? Because that's like the basic, right? Like with the ADHD, we want to eliminate as much processed food as much as possible because of the food, the additives and chemicals added to it. Because again, it's chemicals, so that means that it's going to affect the chemicals in the brain as well. And also looking into a lot of the gluten-free food, because not everything labeled as gluten-free in the store is always good because it's just another form of carbs. Like sometimes they use rice flour or potato starch, or then they add a lot of other stuff in it too as well. So you need to look into that. So if you want to try take out other food and see if it also helps, you can try the eat to focus elimination diet protocol in the book. And the ghee is good. Oh yeah, speaking of ghee, so that's another thing too. So you can use ghee because ghee supposedly have um, very little milk protein in it, so you can do that. And then the other thing is trying to increase the fat in the diet as well. Well, that's good. Yeah, so eliminating all of those. Yeah, so that's good. So eliminating processed food. The other thing is adding more fats in the diet because one of the cause of the ADHD is that the brain is behind or smaller. So it's kind of like any other developmental delay where some kids speak like later. Like my daughter didn't speak the first word until she's 18 months old. So if we're thinking of a brain delay, part of eating healthy is really to raise that, provide the brain with the right nutrients to catch up with the growing. So you can also look into like if he's getting enough fats in the diet, because children technically should be on a high fat diet, not a low fat diet. So yep. So avocado is good. Olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and coconut oil, those are good. And I like using coconut oil. Some people don't like it because it has a very strong coconut flavor. It kind of changes flavor with food. But the reason why I like coconut oil is because the coconut oil is has MCT oil. You probably read about MCT oil and the what's that, the bulletproof coffee. So MCT basically stands for medium chain triglyceride fatty acid. And the reason why I prefer that is because it's shorter. So what it is amount fat. Fat comes in different chain or size. Okay, I only have 10 more minutes left. So okay, so with fats, they're the long chain fatty acid, which is super long chain of fat, and the body needs to make very specific enzymes to click the fat into shorter chain. And then there's the medium chain, which is mostly in coconut oil. With the medium chain fatty acid, it doesn't require that much enzymes. So it actually um, gets through the system a lot easier. So with kids and a lot of adults with ADHD, they tend to have more gut issue. So absorbing long chain fatty acid a lot of times is not the ideal. So the medium chain fatty acid actually works a lot better. And it doesn't mean that you should avoid other type of fat. You should still continue to eat fats from different places because there are different kind of fats, right? Like you have the omega-3 fatty acid, and within omega-3, there are different types as well, like the EPA, DHA, and ALA. And also with the different kind of fats coming from different sources, you get also different vitamins too, right? Like all the fat soluble vitamins comes through from fat. So it's still good idea to have different kind of fats in the diet, but ideally you want to do maybe just do coconut oil once a day in his food. That will help as well. So the fats from that is more just to help provide the brain with a different source of nutrients to use as energy. But oh, and then yeah, so using more different kind of fats, and you can also do nuts and seeds and things like that if that's something that you're still including in the diet. So definitely a higher fat diet for the kids because that's what the brain is made out of. So if and yeah, you didn't mention how old your son is, but anyway, so newer brain science show that our brain is still growing even though we're old. Like I just turned 46, so my brain's still growing, so I still have chance. So before we're like, oh yeah, you're 20 something years old, the brain stopped growing, forget about it. You don't need to do anything for your brain. But now the science is showing that the brain is still continuing to grow. So especially with young children, the brain is growing every second. So every day they learn new things, they're building new pathways. So making sure that you always have that fats in the diet. All that low fat recommendations for weight loss, it doesn't even map out. Like I've seen so many people go on this low fat diet and still not able to lose weight. So it doesn't work. Low fat because our body naturally needs fats to make a lot of very important things. So, and then, well, Paula, you've been pretty quiet, but it's fine. Like if you have question, you can post it here. And okay, so any other question? And I don't know if you're already in the Facebook group. You can always go on the Facebook group and leave question in there. I try and answer questions in the Facebook group, but it's very confusing because someone will post a question and then you get like 20 different answers, and sometimes it's hard because when these people answer your question, they don't know much about you. So that's one of the reason why I started doing this live chat thing, so I can get to ask more questions before I give you some good advice. Okay, breakfast suggestions. We do oatmeal, but I don't know if that's the right choice. I try eggs, but you're saying to avoid it. So again, it depends. So if you're going to do the full on elimination diet, then oatmeal and eggs will not be the best choice. And if that's the case, then you can do more like a meal type of items for breakfast. So like you can do chicken or turkey for breakfast with like sweet potatoes or pumpkin or some vegetables, stir fried vegetables. Um, and for breakfast suggestions, you actually can download. I have a link. Oh, it's okay, no worries. Um, for breakfast suggestion, I'll see. Maybe I'll post it on the Facebook group. So I do have a what do you call that? Like an ebook of like breakfast suggestions, like all the breakfast items that you can download, and it should be in the Facebook group somewhere. But if not, I'll post it again today. And then Paula says she came late, so her son, 11 years old, underweight, small stature. Any information would be helpful. Breakfast and after school snack are always challenging. I'll join your blog. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So if you go to the Facebook, and I think the group is still called Natural Alternative ADHD Treatment. And I'm probably gonna be very slow. Oh, I'll, I'll send out a link. Let me see if I can find it. Uh, Facebook here. So I'm gonna. Oh wow. Okay. I thought I won't be able to find it. Okay. So here's the link to the Facebook page, and from there you should be able to find the group and join the group. So you can join the group, and then like I said, I do have a breakfast ADHD breakfast download, breakfast idea download, and then in the and then the snack, I do have an article for that. I haven't made that snack thing into a download, but it's more just, let me see. So the maybe it's in here. Okay, I'll have to find it. But if you go to the blog, natural alternative ADHD treatment.com, like with space, like a dash between each of those, or if I can find it here. I think I still have a few minutes on Zoom before I get kicked off. Okay. So I listed a bunch of snacks here. So, oh, here I found it. Okay. Here. Okay, good. We're lucky today. I found all of those. Okay, let me look for my Zoom again now. Here. Okay. So I just shared with you the link to the Facebook page, and from the page you should be able to find the group and join the group from there. And then the second thing that I share in the chat is blog posts on ADHD snacks. So you'll find that I think there are 24 different snacks ideas in there, and you'll notice that a lot of those snacks doesn't come out from any processed food. So basically, things that you already have around your house, or you're not. Oh, I see what I did because I'm sending to a direct message. Let me undo that to everyone. Okay. Thank you, Ashley, for letting me know. And then this one too. Okay, I have less than 1 minute. I better hurry. Okay, here's the second link. Okay, so make sure you save the chat before you leave here. Then that way you have the link with you. Okay, and yeah, so go join the Facebook group, and if you're on my email list, I'll have more updates because I I'm hoping that I'll be able to write more new articles. So let me know, put on in the Facebook group. Let me know what other things that you want to learn about, so I have more ideas of how I can help you manage your child's ADHD symptoms better. Okay, so looks like we're still good. But anyway, anything else that I can help you guys with today? And like I said, I started this live chat a couple weeks ago, so I'm still managing, like trying to figure out the time zone difference because like every week I have people showing up.